Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and I'm delighted that you're sharing this Shabbat service with me and each other. In these incredible, challenging, and difficult times, this is an opportunity for us to pause, to step out of the routines that now define our lives, to catch our breath, to reflect upon that which is most important and essential in our lives. So put away the pencil and the paper, put away the notebook and the keys, set aside the shovel and hammer. Rest. For this interval, no buying, no selling, no working, no laboring, no straining, not living in the past, not planning for the future. This is a time for celebration, for joy, for mirth. We are here alive to rejoice in another Sabbath, another opportunity to be together, grateful for our family and our friends. With no distractions, we touch and are touched, the great gift of the Sabbath. And again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr of Congregation Beth Adam, that's our bricks and mortar congregation, and our Jewish community, our online congregation. We've been streaming services online for over a decade. It was an opportunity for us to meet and connect with people around the world, to share our voice of Judaism. But in this pandemic, when we are social distancing and we're not able to join together in community like we once did, online services have become even more important. They remind us that even though we are sheltering in our homes and we are separated from one another, we are part of something larger than ourselves. We're part of a community, a people. And so I'm delighted that we're sharing together this moment. But it's more than just the technology that is important. It's the voice of Judaism that we give voice to at Congregation Beth Adam, a Judaism that's bold, dynamic, a Judaism that, while it respects the past, is more concerned about the future. What are we leaving for generations to come? A Judaism informed by science, informed by the knowledge that we have that our ancestors didn't have. A recognition that what we say during services, the liturgy, the service itself, needs to reflect the best of our thinking, not just parroting what was written by those before us, but we need to add our own ideas and our own voice. That's what we've been doing at Congregation Beth Adam for 40 years. So I'm delighted that you're sharing this service with us together. This is a time you can chat. Rabbis don't typically say that, but there is a chat function. If you don't like the chat function, you can make the image of the screen bigger and just push the chat aside. But if you like to chat, let us know where you're participating from. And also remember, as you're chatting, that this is a welcoming and inclusive space. We want to create a place that everyone feels comfortable. And I know that many people cannot watch our services when they stream live at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I get that. Whenever you're participating, lots of people like to participate at a later date, either later in the evening or the next day. Whenever it's convenient for you, you are part of this very special community. So I'm delighted you're here and that we can share this service together as we continue by lighting the Sabbath candles. On this Shabbat, we create our moment in time. We pause to reflect upon our yesterdays and tomorrows, to renew our ties with family and friends, to restore our energies, to refresh our spirits. As the sun descends and shadows lengthen, the distraction of the day gives way to the stillness of night. It is time now for us to see, not with our eyes, but with our hearts and our minds. As the day gives way to evening, it's time for us to welcome the Shabbat. The candles stand before us, waiting to be lit. We recall our ancestors as we too seek to dispel the darkness and banish the cold, to bring glowing softness, warmth, and safety into our homes. May the dancing flames of these candles kindle warmth within our hearts, wisdom in our minds, passion in our spirits. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light of the world, light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. For those of you who are paying attention, I changed matches and these seem to light faster. But if you're also paying attention, there are new candles and the candles seem to have a rough time getting lit. But everything's set, matches out, candles are lit. I want to continue with a conversation that I was able to have with Jackie Congedo, the executive director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Cincinnati. We actually had this conversation a while back, about a month ago, when she was available. But it speaks to issues that are current about how the pandemic has awakened, if you will, or made more visible anti-Semitism that seems to exist within our society. It was an important conversation. I hope you find it interesting and informative. I am pleased that Jackie Congedo, who has joined us before on our streaming services, is joining us again. As a reminder, Jackie is the director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Cincinnati, which is the public affairs arm of the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati, dealing with issues on anti-Semitism, social justice, and other broader community issues. And I thought this would be an opportunity to talk to you about what's going on right now in the world. Some of the issues that I know you're directly involved in, and issues that I think the Jewish community is thinking about. So we're living through this pandemic, and one of the things that seems to have reared its ugly head, and it has reared its head at other times, is anti-Semitism. How have you, in the work that you've been doing, seen anti-Semitism raise its head up again at this particular moment in history?
Yeah, well, first of all, Rabbi Bar, thanks for having me back. I guess that means I did okay the first time that
you were perfect the first time.
No, all kidding aside, it's great to be with you, and great to be with everyone out in the broader ether. It's funny now that we all are connecting this way all the time. Anyway, so in some ways, you guys have this wonderful network that's already been built, and what a wonderful opportunity to be able to rely and connect with each other, given the circumstances that where we can't really be in proximity. And I think that's probably a good place to start in terms of the question you asked, which is about how this has impacted the Jewish community from an anti-Semitism standpoint. So we know that bigotry and extremism, in particular anti-Semitism, and sort of the way it manifests itself as an extremist ideology, as a conspiracy theory. These kinds of things tend to get worse when certain things happen, and really a pandemic and the changes in our environment. I think it's a perfect example of I don't want to say a tsunami, but a situation that has driven sort of extremists to come out, and also just the opportunity they have using online methodology and other things. So number one, anytime you have an environment of isolation, fear, scarcity, this is when folks who are looking to scapegoat and cast blame have I think a stronger ability to do that. Mm-hmm. People are looking for someone to blame. I sometimes I say, an extremist's sort of best case scenario in terms of recruiting other people to join their extreme flock is, they're looking for people who feel marginalized, who feel isolated, who don't have belonging. Literally people who are sitting in their parents' basements with nothing else going on. Right. Well, who isn't sitting in their own or their parents' basement right now with a lack of connection, feeling some amount of hopelessness? I think it's all relative, but I think we're all feeling some certainly disoriented and wondering what's next. So I think it's a perfect environment for extremists to recruit, unfortunately, and we have been seeing that. We also know that, extremists now have different methodologies, different opportunities to, I don't want to say attack in God forbid, a violent way, but to leverage attacks on the Jewish community. We know about the Zoom bombing phenomenon that has happened across the country. So it's, they're finding kind of new ways to leverage this remote environment to propagate their hate. And I think that they're finding fertile ground among people who feel isolated and feel a lack of belonging and are looking for someone to blame. Anti-Semitism, we know traditionally throughout history, has been a great,
Right.
Jews have served as a scapegoat for that.
Right. And
So,
certainly, and you see, the people, you can read some about, international conspiracies, which sort of not even overt. It's implicit that it's Jewish, but it's that using that there's an international conspiracy, or that the elites of the world are running this as a way to generate profits or power. That feeds into just a lot of the discontent and a lot of powerlessness that people are feeling right now in the face of a pandemic. Absolutely.
And all of this conspiracy, I think that, with QAnon and all this, reemerging and the misinformation and the conspiracy theory that's out there about the truth and the fiction as associated, as it related to this virus, it just fuels the same kind of conspiracy thinking. Mm-hmm. And Jews never, we don't stand good things to win there. We always lose when there's that kind of conspiracy ideology that's kind of, like I said, in the ether, or is already kind of in the is something that people are deferring to. Or
what kinds of things are the organized Jewish community trying to deflect this, or to make it less potent at this particular time? Given how difficult it is, given that everybody right now is a publisher too. Anybody, as long as you have an internet connection, you can publish anything you want anywhere in the world at this point.
So I think what's really important, and it's a lot of the work that we do at the JCRC, is in public affairs, right? And so we have to, we can only do so much about whoever in their basement that's a self-published conspiracy theorist. But we definitely can work through our partnerships at the national level and here locally to make sure that that institutions are doing their fair share to keep this in check. Mm-hmm. That's not just, I could give an example of the ADL working with Facebook and Twitter, trying to work, I think more in some ways forcefully with Facebook and Twitter about, and we've seen the campaign to end hate on their platforms. And we certainly have been supporting that. And then also, in terms of our relationships with business leaders, elected officials, unfortunately, we have seen associated with, the stay-at-home orders back, in late March and in April, I guess, into April, some criticism coming out from elected officials that was Holocaust comparisons, offensive Holocaust comparisons at best. At worst, it's had some anti-Semitic undertones, and that kind of thing we just can't stand for. And so I think we have an opportunity and an obligation in this moment to educate. We've been working closely with the Holocaust and Humanities Center here locally to make sure that people know that there's resources right here in Cincinnati to understand how this kind of language, tropes, these sorts of things can get very dangerous, and the kinds of trafficking that people may or may not be aware that they're engaging in. Mm-hmm. So, I think we have to do the work that we can do with the power centers that exist and with people who have a voice that others follow. And that's the work of the JCRC that we've been focused on over the past few months.
But I wouldn't want to leave it just because I know the work is more than just anti-Semitism. It's working with other communities and marginalized communities. And one of the things that we know that has resulted from COVID, we know that people of color are disproportionately being impacted by the virus because of the way environmental factors, which people of color have been dealing with for some time, because of where they live and where we place dumps and factories and things like that. And so their comorbidity with other diseases that they already have heightened the likelihood of them contracting COVID and then falling very ill. What kind of work is the JCRC doing in the Jewish community doing in response to this, of working with coalitions of people of color who are struggling at this particular moment?
Yeah, I think that, we try to be the kind of partners that we hope others will be to us. And that means putting affected communities at the center of response. That means elevating voices and sort of, lending our support and credibility behind our partners who are more proximate to some of these issues. And I think it's also really important to remember, this is not just part of the COVID conversation, but this is the broader conversation about racial justice and equity that we're having in this country. That the Jewish community, we talk so much about us and them. And I'm not trying to discount the, I would say by far the majority of American Jews that I would say, present as white, let's put it that way. But we have there is a community of Jews of color in this country, in our city. And so this is not just a them thing. This is an us thing. And I think even our language needs to adapt to reflect that. That of course we are invested in these kinds of issues because of our commitment to justice. And when we see that justice is compromised, particularly like you said, in these health outcomes that have glaring disparities. But more than that, and when you think of Jews of color, Black Jews, Latino Jews, this is not just about doing the right thing for other people. This is about something that we have to look out for our own community. Mm-hmm. So I just want to clarify that. But in terms of your question about sort of what are we doing, I think we're working really hard to stay in close conversation, with folks who are in some ways more proximate. And we're trying to prompt the right kinds of dialogue and conversations in our own community that allow people to process some of what some people are just now waking up to this.
Right.
And that's, we have to meet people with some amount of grace in that space to help, if we see that folks are just kind of appalled and outraged and suddenly made aware, let's not miss the opportunity to help them along on that journey. One of the things we're doing, and actually we just sent the email out today. I was actually going to mention that email. I actually have a note.
It's
really exciting. Yeah. So we're really, we've been hearing a lot from our own community about what as Jews can we offer in this moment? What kind of hard work do we need to be doing?
Right.
And we've been talking with some of our partners and others, and we came up with this initiative, which is going to leverage sort of a public art campaign. So the idea is these will be bumper stickers, yard signs, window clings, pieces that are really project Jewish message of justice out into communities. And the sign itself says, do not stand idly by, the text from Leviticus. And it's blatantly in English, but also very prominently in Hebrew. There's a Jewish star on the actual artwork. And we feel that, it's interesting, the feedback I've gotten about the sign and the art.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think that there is some, totally understandably, we started talking about anti-Semitism at the beginning of this, and the fact that we are living in probably the hardest time for American Jews as it relates to certainly violent anti-Semitic attacks since we first stepped foot on these shores, right? Since the beginning of the American Jewish experience. So there is an extreme, I like to call it, feeling of vulnerability and scarcity in the Jewish community, which is warranted. It's not that we can compare apples to apples with the way other communities are feeling about their own moment of vulnerability. That's definitely true. It's all relative.
Right.
But certainly Jews are feeling threatened right now. And so the response that I've gotten from some folks, which is totally understandable, is I don't know if I want to put something with Hebrew in my front yard.
So some people are wary of it. They're worried it draws attention to their Jewishness and not to our sense of social justice.
Well, or just forget the social justice piece. I think there's some concern that in this moment, do I want to project my Jewishness into the world? Do I want people to be able to know who I am and that I carry that identity? And so this is, we're not just putting the signs and the artwork out there, we're actually rolling them into a series of community conversations about vulnerability and visibility as it is for a Jewish community in this moment, and what it means to be able to say, what are the similarities and differences when we talk about people of color, who don't have a choice. Right.
I mean, that's the difference. I mean, the fact is, as Jews who are white, we present as white. We don't our Jewishness isn't the first thing people think about when they meet us. They may not even know we're Jewish. In fact, I think lots of people have met Jews and never realized they were talking to somebody Jewish.
Right.
By putting a
Right.
sign out in front of their house, it's saying, this is a Jewish home. If they have a mezuzah, it's so far, on the door frame that people don't even notice. So it may be an opportunity for a real serious kinds of conversation about how people of color are living in our society right now and what they're feeling.
It unearths a lot of, I think, discomfort for Jewish community in this moment. And in order to move to a place where we're really better equipped to be allies, we have to move through the discomfort. And I don't know that those conversations are even actively happening, particularly in this remote space where we're not seeing and we're not with each other. So we're really trying to be intentional about doing some of the work in our Jewish community as it relates to the issues of race and justice. Right. Before we, or I would say alongside our outward engagement and our partnerships.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one of the challenges is a couple of weeks ago, Rob Richardson, who's a friend, African-American guy, he and I did his show, he's on my show, we go back and forth. And, one of the agreements we said was we have to move away from sort of the oppression Olympics. Who's had it worse? It doesn't matter who's had it worse. The issue is we've all had it to some degree or another, and those people who've been marginalized, or those people there's been prejudice exhibited against, we need to figure out a way to work together to eliminate for everybody so we move into the future in a better space versus feeling it becomes this bizarre competition oftentimes.
Yeah, I think that's, we look at I recently had a conversation with the Inquirer's Kevin Aldridge at the local, the paper of record here in Cincinnati, the editor of the opinion section, and a gentleman by the name of Eric Ward, who we've worked closely with. He's the director of the Western State Center out west and is doing a lot of work sort of in the space of, protecting inclusive democracy, combating racism, and specifically actually the way anti-Semitism plays into that equation and how it informs extremist ideology and sort of poses a threat to our inclusive democracy. And the three of us had a conversation about this and about the future of the Black-Jewish alliance and relationship. And I think you're right. I think that too often, in an attempt to try and internalize or relate to someone else's struggle, we make it about us. And I don't think that's just us. I think that is a complication in the dynamic between the two communities. And frankly, it's a complication in the dynamic between any two marginalized or victimized communities. Right. But I think that there is sort of an opening of opportunity here and a window to say, okay, how can we look at the past and the alliance in the past and what brought us together? In many ways, it was a more, I wouldn't say more natural, but, we were in many of the same, more similar neighborhoods. Right. We were in a position in the civil rights movement where, country clubs and others, housing sacred, there was a no Jews, no Blacks sort of language around that, right? And discriminatory thought and policy around some of these things. And we have to own up to the fact that, like, for the Jewish community, that's not necessarily where we are anymore.
No, absolutely not. It's the society has changed. We are certainly much more, not necessarily fully, but much more embraced in the community. There's less keeping Jews out of certain careers, certain opportunities have changed totally. We're much more in the mainstream where the people of color aren't, and that's
the reason I kind of qualify that is because not in any way to diminish the point you made, which is foundational, but we do have this opportunity in this resurgence of hate that has really look at what happened. And we talked, I think it was the last time I was on speaking with you, what happened in Charlottesville, right? I mean, this was a protest in the removal of Confederate monuments where you had neo-Nazis marching, talking about Jews will not replace us. There is, anybody who's missing the connection there about racism and anti-Semitism, I think that there is a real opportunity to say, let's join together now, again, in self-interest. In the fact that it's not only, again, the right thing to do, but it's in my own self-interest to deal with the same forces that are trying to undermine your security.
Mhm.
And so I think that if we can re-engage in relationship, and if we can try to leave behind some of what's not productive about what you mentioned, the victim Olympics is, I think, what I've heard it described as before as well, then we stand a real opportunity in this moment to move forward together.
I certainly hope so. It's certainly a challenging time, given that we're all being on Zoom together. I mean, it's very hard to have meetings, and there's going to be a lot more intentionality of working on this than perhaps in prior, because we have to really, really make an effort. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I'm just going to throw a silver lining in there, which is that it's easy to get on. It's easy to connect. I mean, it's harder to connect in person. Sometimes it's harder to have some of these uncomfortable conversations,
Right.
but the opportunity, I've been able to, find time, and I know others have been able to make time that we otherwise thought we wouldn't have, because the logistics of getting together are in some ways easier.
Or easier. We're not traveling. It's right now a meeting literally starts at 7 and ends at 8, and you've committed an hour, and then you go to another meeting halfway around the country for that next meeting. So absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking your time. The work that you're doing, it's so important. And I hope that the next time we're together, we're actually together. And that
I was going to say, next time, have me on to talk about something good.
Okay.
Crisis in the world. No, that we, again.
Then we'll do so. We'll do so.
That's our work. I mean, we feel it's really, it's important. It's important at critical times. And I think it really is a privilege and humbling to do work that is, that's necessary during times that are uncertain and scary, and where we don't have a charted path forward. So we are on the front lines of it in a lot of ways, and I'm always happy to be in conversation with you about that.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Stay well, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks. I appreciate that Jackie Congedo, the executive director of the JCRC, was able to spend some time with us, helping us to understand issues that are current and important and that we need to be aware of. We continue our service now with the virtual challah and the sharing of wine. We do this as an affirmation that though we are separated by distance, we are connected one another. So if you have some bread, challah, Melba toast, donut, shira, whatever you got, share it with us now. As the fingers of the challah intertwine, so do we join hands in our common humanity, sharing the fruits of our labor. We cherish that which has been created through human effort. For it is through the work of our hands, the strength of the human spirit, the vision of our minds, that our dreams are woven into the tapestry of time. We celebrate the accomplishments of yesterday and today, anticipating the possibilities of tomorrow. May the sharing of the challah strengthen our bonds with others who walk upon this earth. Baruch Amal Kapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch Hazon Adam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch Lechem Haaretz, blessed is the bread of the earth. And then if you have some wine or some juice, join with me. We celebrate the fruit of the vine and the bounty of nature as we lift the cup and sip from it. For we're part of nature, which gave us birth and continues to sustain us. Even as we depend upon nature, so do we influence its course. Through the search for understanding, we have gained the knowledge to shape our world. Guided by the best of human wisdom and the compassion of our spirit, we accept the responsibility which rests upon us. May the taste of the wine or juice upon our lips stir within us a reverence for nature and a respect for human endeavor. Bruchim chachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim chachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within us. And we say, l'chaim, to life. It's been a pleasure sharing this Shabbat with you and learning as well from Jackie Congedo. Please join us again in the weeks to come at bethadam.org. You can come, and our services are always at 6 o'clock at Shabbat. You can watch them live, or as I said, you can watch them in our archives. You can always find out about upcoming events by going to bethadam.org. There you'll see both our online activities as well as we're calling our bricks and mortar activities, even though most of them now are over Zoom. If you want to participate over Zoom, you will need to get a Zoom link. You can do that by contacting or writing our executive director at our congregational office. So I'm pleased you're here. I'm pleased that we were able to share this together. And we close with our final words. May we know blessings those who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.